Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel. I'm here with SuperFang99. As always, here we are talking about scenario number 6, Union and Disillusion. This is Circle Undone's big finale because we're going to go up against the Watcher. Wait a minute, that's only scenario 6. There's more of this? Yeah, we
I
actually
know,
we'll,
right?
we'll talk about this scenario and then where the story might go from here. So let's go ahead and get into it. There's some
Yeah,
setup stuff here, right?
there is. I mean, the main thing is that we have brought ourselves to the unvisited isle. Um, I mean, I think the reason that we know about it, if we're on the lodge side, is because they're like, we're going over there, so that's what's going on. I actually legitimately don't even remember how we know to go here if we don't even interact with the lodge, but don't worry about
Don't
it.
worry about it. I think there's like stuff going on in Arkham and you're really worried about like what's going on. Like the city
Yeah,
streets have changed and stuff like that.
stuff like that. Anyway, main deal. We have a choice to make. This is the actual choice. We must either help complete the lodge's ritual, or we must stop the lodge's ritual. And if we choose to help them, then we side with the lodge. Otherwise, we side with the coven. This is the main kind of choice that all of this has been leading up to. Notably, you don't need to have been inducted into the inner circle or like hide yourself or lie to Carl Sanford and stuff to make this choice. You can make it one way or the other, and of course, this choice affects the resolution of this scenario. But of course, your other choices might affect the particulars about what happens with the scenario.
Hmm. It's kind of strange that you get to make this choice now, considering that you've been kind of making this choice all along. But I guess it's
Right.
one final make sure you choose the thing that you want to choose.
Correct. Yeah. And with that, we are ready to go to setup. So the main things about setup is we're going to gather some encounter cards and we're going to put some locations into play. We'll get the locations in a second. And we're also going to be lighting or not lighting braziers on specific locations, and that is done by placing resource tokens on them. So if the if we sided with the coven, then the braziers are already lit, meaning that our goal is to put them out. However, if we side with the lodge, they are unlit, so there won't be a resource token on them, and our goal will be to put resource tokens on them and light them. Some other things going on. We also need to do some stuff with the missing persons section. I think we're going to get to that when that comes up.
Hmm.
However, the main thing is that we have a very strange, or not necessarily strange, but somewhat complicated setup for the act deck. There are four versions of the act deck, and the versions have to deal with the end of Act 3 and what you're doing in Act 4. So, why don't we go through that right now? Version 1. This version happens if you sided with the lodge. Very straightforward. This act is going to be you are helping the lodge to do their things, and that's what you need to do. Version 2 is if you are siding with the coven and you're deceiving the lodge, and the investigators were inducted into the inner circle, meaning you sided with the coven. However, previously you were able to deceive the lodge and go fully into the lodge by being inducted into the inner circle, notably in the last scenario. So this is a full betrayal of the lodge act, if that makes any sense.
The cool one.
Indeed, it is the cool one. All right, version 3 is if that didn't happen, but you still sided with the coven, and if at least two of the following are true, you either deceived the lodge, hid the knowledge of the coven, or the investigators kept their mementos hidden, aka you were on the track to deceiving the lodge and stuff like that. This is a midway betrayal act, I guess.
Hmm.
And then the last one is if you just sided with the coven, as in maybe you went full witches or you didn't really deceive the lodge at all.
Yeah.
You have those four acts.
So I think that's really neat that there's more than just the either you were full one direction or the other, or you didn't do anything. Uh, we talked about the Forgotten Age, and one of the things that I kind of am annoyed at with that one is that even though there's like these two main paths you can go on, if you don't really know that you're supposed to make the choices, then you kind of get stuck into this midway, which is just not great. This is nice because there's lots of decision points that you will have made during this campaign, and they all have ramifications in the scenario.
Definitely. All right. The next little bit of setup is that we need to check how many heretics that were unleashed unto Arkham, aka how many of the heretics in the Wages of Sin that were not defeated by the end of the scenario. For each of those, we put a Doom on Agenda 1A, very similar to Where Doom Awaits from Dunnage.
Put all 4 Doom there. We didn't get any of them.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's all the setup, other than locations, of course, but we should just talk about a brief thing about circles. So, circle actions is like a little weird thing in this one scenario. Basically, it is a action that involves testing multiple skills at once. So you see here in the booklet, there is an example of testing intellect plus combat. Basically, you're going to add up your skill values for both of those skills, and also you can commit cards with either of those skill icons, and all of those icons that match are considered matching. We're going to be doing that a lot, and that is the main objective of the scenario, either to light braziers or to unlight braziers, whatever our goal is.
And that's the circle test, basically how you do it. I'm kind of sad that you don't do this in more than one scenario in this campaign, since it's called the Circle Undone, but
I know.
But here they are.
It would be cool. It'd be cool if they had like one per scenario for like a big event or something.
Yeah, we'll talk about them when they show up on the locations a little bit more, but I like this mechanic a lot.
Yeah, it's really cool. I honestly want to see it more. All right. Why don't we talk about locations? Oh, actually, sorry. No, that's correct. I was about to talk about it in counter deck, but that doesn't come in until later.
Yeah.
All right, so in the locations, we're going to get 2 to start with, the Miskatonic River and the Forbidding Shore, and we're going to get 2 locations randomly from this unvisited isle pile over here. So we get 2, and we put them into play. And then, of course, depending on if we are sided with the Lodge or the Coven, there's going to be braziers on them. I'm going to assume for now that we are siding with the Lodge just for the sake of not having to put the braziers on them.
Yep.
Okay, so as the unvisited isles say, you can't go in there until you have to do the thing. And let's figure out how to do the thing. First of all, we need to go to the Miskatonic River. This is where we start. It's just a resigned location.
5 Shroud.
Main thing here. 5 Shroud, I know. Don't put clues here.
Don't be Joe Diamond.
Correct. Oh god, that is true. All right, the main thing over here is the Forbidding Shore. There is an action to take a circle test. You test willpower or intellect 3. You don't actually add them on this one, which is weird. It's just a circle test, a normal one. And you either light or unlight a brazier, which can be a light or unlight the brazier on the Forbidding Shore, of course. And there's a haunted ability to lose an action or lose 2 resources. Sad. Luckily, failing circle test does not trigger haunted abilities, so that's nice.
That's true. There are some clues here, though.
There are some clues, yes. All right. Let's see. What happens now? We need to get some clues. So by this time, we're probably going to have to light these braziers or unlight them. And so do you want to just go through some unvisited isle locations, see what we start with?
Yeah, so we get 2 for sure to start with, and we need to find 6 clues if you are playing 2-player, which we have those clues out here for 2-player. Let's look at this one over here.
Yeah. It's the Forsaken Woods. 2 Shroud, 2 Precludes, Victory 1. As an action, circle tests willpower plus combat 11. And if you succeed, you may light or unlight. And it has a haunted ability to search the encounter deck or discard pile for a Whippoorwill and spawn it at this location, or the nearest Whippoorwill attacks you. Hey, Whippoorwills are back.
Notably, at this point, we don't need to do these circle tests. There's no reason that we've been given to light or unlight braziers, so we're just getting clues.
Exactly. The only one that we have to do right now is the Forbidding Shore in order to go to the locations. Other than that, we don't have to do them, although it might be good to try and do that if we want to.
Yep. All right, not bad. Low Shroud.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and also it has all the clues we need. So in theory, we could advance right now.
Let's look at the other one, I think.
Exactly, because also I think it's a bad idea. All right, it's the Decayed Willow. 4 Shroud, 2 Precludes, Victory 1. Action, circle, test, intellect plus combat 9. And the haunted effect is to choose and discard a card from your hand. That's actually not so bad.
Yeah, and when you get to choose when you discard cards, that's not so terrible.
Exactly.
We'll talk about the combination of all of these skill tests a little bit later, but right now I'm kind of reminded of the first scenario of this campaign because there's a bunch of locations that have victory points on them and a bunch of clues, and we're kind of wandering around. It looks like the woods.
Yeah, I wonder what other similarities we might run into. In fact, why don't we run into that right now? So all of these acts are the same, so I'm just gonna get rid of them all.
Mm-hmm.
Once you spend our 3 per clues, we get separated. Each investigator must randomly choose one of the set aside unvisited eye locations, put it into play in front of them, and immediately move to that location. And then either light it or unlight it based on what we're doing. And something happens with these the random cards underneath the scenario reference card, which I did skip during setup. Basically, it is a story card that are placed in there based on if someone chose Gabriella, Pennywhite, Jerome Davis, or Valentina Rivas during the prologue of this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in 2-player, of course, we would get two new ones. So like these ones over here or something. Obviously, in 4-player, you can get all 6 of them out, which is actually very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. We'll start with 2-player for now, and these are the ones we get. And let's see. Who did we do? Do you remember who we chose for the prologue?
I know played Valentino, and then maybe Penny?
Yeah, that's right. I think I played Penny.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we look at Valentino then?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I think this is the story card. Nope. Well, there it is.
Yep.
So all of these are basically analogous to each other. For this particular character, we need to check if they first disappeared into the mist and if you were on his trail. So, to recap, if they disappeared into the mist, that means that in the prologue scenario, assuming that you didn't choose one of the tarot cards or whatever, they were able to get to the agenda having 7 or more doom and having the agenda be the thing that killed them.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. And you have to, in order for you to be on their trail, in the second scenario, you need to have cleared all of the clues off of their respective location.
Yes, for Valentino,
right.
It was the
billiards
room. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if he disappeared in the mist and we're on his trail, he comes out of the forest and we find him.
Yay!
And he is alive, and we can have, or actually, this person takes control of the set-aside Valentino Rivas story assets. Look, there he is. He's an asset. He's not an investigator.
He's the same ability as his investigator card from the prologue, though.
Essentially, yes. And also gives you +1 agility, which is very nice. Unfortunately, it does say that it doesn't take up an ally slot. Good job, designers.
Yay!
Yay. All right, the next part. If Valentino was claimed by specters, that occurs is if that prologue investigator died by an attack by a spectral enemy, correct?
A monster enemy, I believe.
Monster enemy, correct. Which I think that is all of the enemies in that scenario. So.
Well, there's one other one, so there's another thing that could happen. We'll see later.
Well, yes, of course. I see what you're saying. Correct. Monster enemy specifically, aka not the spectral watcher.
Mm-hmm.
If that happened, then we spawn this guy engaged with you. Holy shit. Okay, so 354 humanoid geist spectral elite hunter retaliate. Forest after it engages you, lose 2 resources. That's sad. That's so sad.
That's so bad.
Oh man.
And no victory points. You get victory 0 for dispatching this guy.
Yeah, that really sucks. If you recall, when we were talking about the prologue, that's why we said, please, by the love of God, don't die by the attacks of the monsters. Because holy shit.
And he's not the only one this happens to.
No, in fact, it happens to all of them. So here's Penny's enemy, and also Penny's, and I'm just going to bring them all out.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So, well, let's just go through Penny, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Start with her. 453 humanoid guy spectral elite hunter. After you successfully evade Penny, take a damage. Come on, game. Her good side, though, you get a +1 willpower, and then after you succeed a skill test, but during revelation effect, you can exhaust her and discover a clue at her location. Same effect. Very, very good effect.
Really good, so. Man, and so much soak too.
Good.
3-2.
Yeah. All right, Gabriella, 542 alert and hunter. Okay. After you successfully attack Gabriella Miser, if she's ready, take a horror. Gosh darn it.
I love the subtitle here. You're next.
Yeah, you're next. Let's see. She's not going down that easily. She gets +1 combat, and after an enemy attacks you, even if that attack was canceled, you can exhaust her. Discover clear her location. Also, very excellent card. All right, and Jerome Davids. Jesus, his stats: 444, Hunter, after he engages you, choose and discard 2 cards in your hand.
Mm,
That's so much worse than 2 resources.
it really is.
Man, starve for answers. And we have the normal one in way over his head, plus a book, and he has the same thing where you can basically cancel a treachery if you discard cards with at least 2 intellect icons from your hand.
So, Super Fang, what if none of these things happened? What if I didn't save him or he didn't turn to a monster? What happens?
Yeah. Help!
At the very bottom here,
Basically, nothing
nothing
happens.
happens. Which
Yes.
honestly is what you're kind of striving for.
Yeah, that is like honestly the best case. Obviously, if you can do the Disappear to the Mist and clear off the thing, these allies are very, very good, and you should get them.
Hmm.
But really, what you're hoping for is just nothing to happen because, by God, having the enemy spawn can sometimes just kill you before you get to the rest of the scenario.
Right, because
Also,
these randomly, one of them will randomly engage you, and you have to deal with them by yourself, right? So
yeah,
that's tough. It's a little bit of
yeah,
a reprise of the first scenario in that the part where you get the goat spawn, right? Kind of on your own.
correct.
But these
Yeah,
guys are much harder to deal with. I know it's scenario 6, but man, you do get
yeah,
to add these guys to your deck at the end of the scenario. So it's not just a one-time thing. I'm a little sad that it
correct.
comes in only in scenario 6, but they're that good.
Yeah, and like I think it is let's see, it is equivalent to the dunnage allies where they come in after in scenario 6 as well, and their cycle is somewhat similar where they all have one of the stat boosts and have some kind of ability to draw cards.
Hmm.
So like obviously these ones are better, but they're just way harder to get.
Yeah. I mean, the Dunwich ones at least come in early, like one of them, maybe if you save them. It's just
Well, that's true.
the rest of them come in, yeah,
That's true.
later on for sure.
Yeah, you're right.
Oof. So yeah,
Ooh.
this is a really interesting part of the scenario where you are split up. If you do deal with your enemy, or maybe if you don't have one, how do I get back with my friends?
Yeah, well, the act is telling you that you cannot leave the location in front of them, very similar to the first scenario. We need to spend 2 per clues as a group in order to overcome that. And why don't we do that right now actually?
Hmm.
And then we'll get to these other acts. So, the Revenant arrives. So, the Spectral Watcher comes at the Miskatonic River, so this fellow is going to obviously appear and their encounter cards are going to be shoveled into the deck.
Plus
Blah blah
an
blah. And go
extra
ahead.
one, right? One that we haven't seen
Correct. Yeah,
before.
there's one card called the Watcher's Gaze, which we will get to.
Hmm.
That's a card. And the locations go back to the center, and now we're playing Arkham again,
Hmm.
basically. We do put the Geist Trap location into play, which is going to be relevant for the ending of this scenario. And yeah, we're going to light or unlight it. And now we have some acts that we need to do. I believe the front of these acts are all the same. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, albeit either it's telling you to either light the thing or try and bind the watcher at the place,
Right.
um, depending on what you're doing. So, but yeah, we now have a new free triggered ability to during a circle action. We need to spend a clue to reduce the difficulty of the skill test by 2. That is going to be very important, obviously, if you do not have the correct stats in order to test the circle test. We need to get those clues.
So the Geist Chop we cannot enter yet. Let's take a look at the
Correct.
other locations we can see and see if we can pass those circle tests.
Yeah. We have the Misty Clearing. Only 1 shroud, 2 precludes, victory 1. It's a circle test with willpower and agility 11. And its haunted ability is to either place a doom on the location or you take a damage and a horror. It's a little annoying.
Pretty tough stats if you definitely don't have those.
Totally.
Then notice the numbers are different on these. So these two are 11. The one we saw earlier on this side is a
9.
9, which is
Yeah.
interesting. And
Yeah, I think what they're like the number is supposed to be somewhat relative to like the shroud of the location. So it's like you can get the clues to be able to test a higher test or something like that.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last location we have here.
Yeah, the last one over here is the moss covered steps. It's a combat agility 10 test. And then the haunted ability is your next move action this round cost 1 additional action. So you're probably not moving.
Nope. Let's take a look at the other two that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
And notice
It's
the connections are
yeah,
interesting in this one. Every unvisited isle is connected to other unvisited isles, as well as the Forbidding Shores and the Geist Trap. So
correct.
lots
So
of,
it's a
uh,
little bit of a mess.
yeah, a little bit of mess, but also notably the Spectral Watcher can takes like one turn to move to the Forbidden Shores, and then it's coming after you wherever you are.
Exactly. All right, this one. 2 Shroud, 2 Precludes. Victory 1. Circle test is intellect and agility 9. And then the haunted ability is just you must either discard an asset you control or take a damage.
Isn't that one of those rooms in the Migra estate?
Oh yeah, I think so. It's something similar to that.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. And the last one, we have the Standing Stones, 3 Shroud, 2 Precludes, Willpower, Intellect, 10 test. And the Haunted ability is until the end of the round, increase the difficulty of each skill test during circle actions by 2. And that is not about here. That's all circle tests. So maybe don't have someone else try those as well.
Yeah, so this is interesting because the number of circle tests you need to pass in order to move on scales by player count.
Yep. 2
And
plus player.
yep, and well, you kind of at lower player counts, you're like, am I going to get the ones that I can pass, or do I have to do a lot of clue spending to get there? This is interesting though. It's not there's no limit on spending clues, and there's nothing about who spends them.
Yes. And also, I believe not even where you are.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you could, in theory, spend clues from across the map to help someone else.
and
Um,
there's more clues on the map if there's more players in the game. So there's
yes.
some oddities I think with the player scaling in this one, but you know,
Yeah. So I've heard stories about this scenario in True Solo where there are literally not enough clues to pass some of the tests, which is unfortunate. Um, I find that in at least 2 players, like it's usually good enough because you have to test what 4 circle tests,
mhm.
and at least someone has the stats to be able to deal with these, hopefully without either spending clues or maybe only spending 1 or 2. Um, but like if you spend a bunch and you can draw the auto fail, then you're kind of just hosed. So
It is true.
that kind of
This
sucks.
is, I mean, these are tough tests. You usually need to either commit cards or spend clues or both, really. And drawing the auto fail is kind of tough.
Yeah, it sucks too, is because you have to spend the clues before you draw the token, obviously.
Hmm.
But there's no way to recover those resources once you've spent them if you fail.
Right,
And
especially the
so
clues. Right, yeah.
it's specifically the clues because they're just gone. It's not like they're placed at your location or whatever. So if you fail, it's basically like you lost a chunk of your resources failing the test. So like it made it more difficult for every subsequent test as well.
We usually talk about the tokens later on, but I actually should just mention that the skulls, of which there may be two or three in the bag at this point,
Yeah.
make you reveal another token. So it's a -2, and then if you're taking a circle action, you have to add the modifier of the next token you draw as well.
Yeah, that really sucks.
Yeah, you're kind of like trying to do math of like, can I beat the bag? I'm up like,
Yeah,
5 or something on the
yeah,
test. That's a test of 11 or something, and you draw the skull, and you're like, uh-oh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it's more like in order to be comfortable, you have to like really overcommit. Sometimes you're like, I need to be like 6 up over this circle test in order to reliably pass it, and so you're like, and then you just draw a +1, and you're like, okay, move on. But that is this game.
Well,
Um,
what happens if we do light or unlight all of the braziers on our locations?
you might actually, I'm gonna really quickly check what this agenda is because
Oh
by
yeah,
this
yeah,
point, I think it should have flipped.
yeah,
Um, oh right, okay, that's right. This is important.
yep.
Um, okay, so we shuffle and carry discard pile, which is kind of annoying, actually, if I recall. Um, yeah,
It is.
there's some really whack stuff in here. I don't know why they did that. Anyway, we now have a new little thing to check if at least one of the characters, the missing persons, was taken by the Watcher, meaning that the prologue investigator died to an attack by the Spectral Watcher. Then the Spectral Watcher grows in power. So for each one that was taken by the Watcher, you place a resource on the Spectral Watcher as a stolen soul, which is
Ooh.
kind of cool. And then until the end of the scenario, for each stolen soul on the Spectral Watcher, it gets +1 fight and +1 per investigator health. And then we move on.
That's
So
really
the
hard to remember, but it's also pretty nasty. Like +1 fight,
yeah,
okay, that's bringing up to 4, maybe 5, maybe
yeah,
more. But the plus extra health is tough.
it is tough, especially because we might have to deal with the special watcher at some point in the scenario as well.
Well, we definitely need to deal with them. Like I said, after he moves once, there's no getting away. All these locations are connected to each other, so
Yep.
you need to defeat it or keep evading it every turn.
Yep. All right, that's the agendas.
Hmm.
Now let's move on. Okay, so we have either lit. Sorry, on this one we have to light all of the braziers. For the other ones, we have to unlight them. And let's see what. Let's go down the line. So with version 1,
Hmm.
we reveal the Geist Trap location and move each investigator at the unvisited isle location to the Geist Trap. Honestly, I'm gonna be a little mad here. Why doesn't it just say move everyone to the Geist Trap?
I don't know.
Because, like, if you're at the Miskatonic River, you won't move, and you're like, or even the Forbidding Shore, and you're like, well, I guess, see ya.
I know the free move action.
I
you
know,
you
right?
miss it.
You do visit.
I guess like
So
there's
that's unfortunate.
really no point to you going to those two locations at this point in the game, right? Because you can move directly from here to here, unless
That's true.
you're
Unless
trying
you're
to.
trying to avoid this guy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of it. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, so then in this particular act, we check the campaign log. If the witch's spell was cast, we spawn a net mason at the Geist Trap. If the witch's spell was broken, we spawn a common initiate at the Geist Trap. And then, other than that, we shuffle all the witch enemies into the encounter deck, along with the encounter discard pile. So here's a
how
net mason. We've seen it before.
how's the first thing happen? Is it just if you failed the first scenario?
Yes. Correct. Yes.
And maybe if you, well, we'll talk about the return to later. We'll look it up, but I think that maybe that one also has a spell cast. I'm not sure. Anyway,
Yeah. Good question. I don't know.
yep. So she was also in the very first scenario. So
Yes. And now, in theory, she could be in the encounter deck, which can be very spooky.
yeah, that is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, no, she spawns at the Geist Trap.
Unless the witch's spell is broken. Right?
And then you spawn. Oh, I see. See, shuffle each remaining set aside witch enemy in the encounter deck. Okay,
Yes.
she would be.
She would be set aside if I'm correct. So sorry. Yes, you search
Yes.
the collection for Annette Mason and Joseph Miger to set them both aside.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that's a little spooky. Annette could just show up, and then your goal is to defeat the Spectral Watcher at the Geist Trap while the brazier there is lit.
Well, I mean, at least she's 2 victory points, right?
Yes,
You you
correct.
you beat her before.
Correct. Yes.
All right.
Oh my
So
god! I just realized I don't have the puzzle box. Where is
I
that?
was gonna ask you about that later. You can go get that. I'll talk about the this next part
Go for
here.
it.
So the next act 4A, which is also somewhat similar to all the other ones, I believe, with some different flavor text. It's got another circle action here. Wait a minute. I thought I did all of my circle actions. Well, if we reveal the Geist Trap, because we're allowed to go here now, we have some interesting text. We've got 4 Shroud, 1 per clue investigator, and while the Spectral Watcher is here, it gains Retaliate and Circle test willpower, intellect, combat, agility, 20 to complete the ritual or to disrupt it. If you succeed, you may either light or unlight the brazier here, and there's a haunted effect. Victory 1, also nice. So it's basically telling us to we need to light the brazier here under this version. So it means passing the circle test, and then we need to defeat the Spectral Watcher here. All right, that's not so bad. I mean, we have to just lure it over here and then defeat it. It might have some extra health, might have some extra fight, but also we might be lucky enough to have the puzzle box in our deck from the previous scenario. And you might notice here that there's some special stuff you can do once per game. Is basically just this game. You
Yep.
can either unlight a brazier, you can exhaust the Spectral Watcher, or just deal 5 damage to it if it is already exhausted, and that can maybe just deal with the problem with one action.
Yep. And the unlighting is usually only relevant for if you sided with the Coven, and of course, dealing with the Spectral Watcher is generally good. But obviously, this is a way to kill the Spectral Watcher at the very end here, without having to deal its actual 5 damage to it.
If it does have more health, then you will need to do more, but 5 is a nice chunk.
Yep. All right. So that's the binding rights. All of the 3 other ones actually have the broken rights, and also a version on the back here of each of these acts. So, start with this one. This is the most interesting one. Full Betrayal. Basically, we move everyone to the Geist Trap, and we remove all of the cultist tokens from the Chaos bag. We are no longer cultists.
And you don't get anything else. You don't get any one of their enemies.
Yes. This is the reward for complete traitorous behavior.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
There's some more too, I think. Yeah,
that's true. No, that's it.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, though. But yes. I think you're right. Anyway. All right, we're on the broken right. It's basically the same thing as the binding right. We need to have the Spectral Watcher defeated while the Geist Trap... at the Geist Trap, while the brazier there is unlit. So you'll note that the Geist Trap is lit already, I think. Usually, right? Am I crazy?
It would have told us on the other...
Oh, does it actually specifically say... Wait, really?
So what's on the next one? What's on 4?
4 is while it is unlit. Oh, right. Sorry. The other act, Fated Souls, on the back is you put it into play, and then we do the thing if it's already lit.
That's it.
Yeah, that's right. So it is correct. You have to either light or unlight it.
Okay.
No
freebie there.
No freebie. Anyway, so yeah, now we have to unlight the brazier and then kill the Spectral Watcher there, and then we'll deal with that. Version 3, we are midway betrayal. So we spawn a Lodge Neophyte at the Geist Trap, and then we shuffle the rest of the Silver Twilight Lodge encounter set into the encounter deck. And if Yosef is alive and well, we spawn Yosef at the Geist Trap, and investigators cannot parlay with Yosef. Honestly, that would be hilarious if we could.
Yeah, this is just reusing the card from
away.
Before, basically, is the idea.
Exactly. Luckily, he is also 2 VP, so that's nice.
He's only 3 HP.
That is also true. He's way easier than a net base. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And I believe Yosef is alive and well. There's like 2 outcomes for that. Obviously, if he escaped, but something else. I can't remember.
Maybe if you saved the more cultists in the beginning too. I don't remember, and left him in the...
I think so. Yeah. Let's go with that. Anyway, that is the midway betrayal. Then we have the... we didn't do anything. We just shuffle the Silver Twilight Lodge into the encounter deck, and then also spawn Yosef if he's alive. So, if you didn't go full betrayal, you are punished slightly. But, yeah.
Okay. So, more than likely, you're going to see this guy, but he goes down pretty easy.
Indeed. He's kind of a chump. Yeah. So that's nice.
All right.
That's really the scenario. And at this point, we need to deal with the Special Watcher at the Geist Trap. And then depending on which act we have at the end, either the Binding Right or the Broken Right, something happens.
So what do you think about this 20 difficulty test?
Yeah, it's almost like there was a card that was given to us that could boost all of our stats at once.
Yeah.
And give us an extra action as well.
Yeah, that Ace of Rods card finally has a purpose.
Correct. This is really its only purpose. Yeah. You still have to draw it, also.
That's true. You also can use the puzzle box, right? This will just unlight the brazier, if that's what you're
on
for.
The Coven side, for sure.
Yeah. Do you remember what we did? Did we use Ace of Rods here, or did we?
I don't remember. We were on the Coven side, and we had the puzzle box. I feel like we either didn't find it or we used it to kill the Spectral Watcher. I can't remember.
I don't remember either. But we did pass this, I believe, when we played it. So.
I think so. Yeah.
Honestly, like, this is a neat little... I mean, it's memorable, right? Like, how do you pass a 20 difficulty test? Well, you can, boost your stats up pretty high. You have a lot of assets in play at this point. Maybe you have a lot of things to commit. You have a lot of clues to spend. It's kind of a fun little challenge at the end. I remember when I played this in my first run, I was Preston Fairmont,
Oh no.
and I played the card that you probably have never played before called Against All Odds. And
Oh
it's a survivor card,
yeah.
and basically it says you reveal tokens from the bag that's the difference between your base skill and the difficulty of the test.
Holy shit! You revealed the whole bag.
Revealed the whole bag, or something close to it, anyways.
Yeah, it's
And then
16 tokens or something.
right, and went fishing for Preston's Elder Sign, which
Oh
says
my god.
if you reveal this, you can spend 2 resources to automatically succeed the test.
Wow. Wow.
It was like the stars aligned. I was like, oh, I can do this.
That's the card with the Eldritch Horror art, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
That's the one.
That's hilarious.
If you're Calvin, this is not so bad either.
That's true. Yeah, you basically can have nat 20 on your stats to begin with, so that's nice.
But it's not too often that you get characters who have lots of things.
Right.
So good luck here. But spending the clues is not that bad. You can just save them up. There's 4 clues. There's 2 clues here. Maybe more if you have more players.
Yeah.
But it is kind
Honestly,
of. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, I feel like this should have 2 per clues. Like,
It should.
I like 1 per really seems pretty low, because like yeah, right. So like the average total skill value for an investigator is 12, and so you need to get at least another 12 to make a comfortable 20 test. So like having at least that many clues, like not at least, but like that many clues plus like maybe 1 or 2 commits probably is good, but like it's not enough clues, man.
Yeah, if you're again, especially with lower player counts, right? Because if you like just pass some of these tests on your own without spending the clues, you can save them
Yeah.
for this. And
Yeah.
it makes it a lot easier. Again, I don't want to like come down too hard in the scenario for the player scaling being a little bit odd, but additionally, like more players, more people who can commit cards to your test, and all
Yeah.
the icons count. Every single icon you play.
Yeah. I have a theory, or not a theory, but I really think the difficulty should also have scaled the player count somewhat. I believe that. Not necessarily purely scale, but like 5 plus 4 per investigator or something like that, right? Like I feel like they could have done that and it would have been a lot more reasonable, but it is what it is.
Or you just use your puzzle box. You don't have to deal with this at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like this idea though. I think it's fun.
It is a cool idea, for sure.
It's funny to talk about this scenario in terms of all of the act and agenda stuff, and we'll talk about the end of it as well in a second, because this is like one half of the scenario. The other half is the encounter deck, which is just completely brutal in my opinion.
It's trying to kill you with every single card.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see what happens when we advance in our 2 versions.
Yeah, so on the binding rights, we have sided with the Lodge fully. Disillusion. Basically, the Watcher wails, and we are going to prevent the Watcher from escaping. Otherwise, and that's R1. Otherwise, if we stop the rights, Union, something happens to. It is a net mason, right, at this point, or someone shows up, and then the net's like, "Hello." All right.
And there's a lot of resolutions in the bag, or in the campaign guide here. Not just those.
Luckily, R1 is the easiest one, I think. So basically, blah blah blah. Annette shows up. She's like, "What have you done?" And then Carl Sanford's like, "I am going to be immortal, and be the almighty powerful person." You can choose to join Carl Sanford in his quest for almighty power. If you do, well, I should say, you can only do that if you were inducted into the inner circle and you are not deceiving the Lodge. So you have to have wholeheartedly been with the Lodge since the beginning, gone through the entire thing, all in scenario 5 as well. And if you say yes, you go to R2 and you win!
The true work of the Silver Twilight Lodge has begun.
Ta-da.
You win. I guess maybe if you are truly loyal, you win. But the Silver Twilight Lodge wins the campaign. I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's the campaign.
That's it.
See you next week.
Yep. Bye.
Yep.
Is this the only time that you can win the campaign before the end of the cycle?
So far, yeah.
Yeah. So sorry if you bought scenarios 7 and 8. Start over and choose differently.
There you go. Honestly, I think it's really cool, and I'm glad it's there. It's basically like a little secret ending, um, going like full secret Silver Twilight.
And I think
Um,
that like most players aren't going to do that on their first playthrough, right?
right. Or like, and this is completely understandable. Is they might be like, what happens if we say yes? They read it and they're like, okay, that's cool. I can say that I've done it, and then just say no.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
That is the thing. Um, but yeah, it's a really cool like achievement. It's in the achievement list, if you will. All right. If you say no, then Carl Sanford possesses the secrets of the universe, and we go to Resolution 8, which is the very end here. We're going to get to that because if we go to Union, we go to R4.
Mm-hmm.
So in R4, Annette kind of approaches, and also Carl Sanford is there, and Annette gets the power of Kezia Mason, whom we have summoned. That is the whole point of this, by the way. We summoned Kezia Mason again.
Yeah.
I guess.
And she basically possesses Annette.
Correct. And we have to do some stuff. So first of all, Annette Mason is possessed by evil because she gets the power, and we go to R8 as well.
Mm-hmm. And
There
Carl
are some
Sanford's
other
not a bad guy
resolutions.
this time.
In theory, yes.
He seems like a nice old man.
He seems like a nice guy. I'm trying to stop this. Don't you see?
Clearly.
Yeah. There are some other resolutions because on the back of the agenda, if you fail, defeated physical trauma, and you go to R5. So all R5, R6, and R7 are doing is trying to determine if Carl Sanford or Annette Mason is the one that actually gets the power. So you have to do this weird thing. You have to like compare which of these two charts has more true things. So on the left side, if the witch spell is broken, if you rescued Yosef / Yosef was alive, and if there are one or fewer heretics, then we go to R6, meaning that Carl Sanford gets the power. Otherwise, Annette Mason gets the power. A little bit of a coin toss there, I guess. But it is a choice somewhat, so.
Yep, and that basically just punts you into Resolution 8 eventually.
Yep, which we just kind of clean up. We remove the puzzle box. You don't need that anymore. If any of the missing persons were alive, then you can permanently add them to anyone's deck, and we earn our victory, which could be a lot in theory.
Mm-hmm.
In full 4-player, there's all 6 of these and the Geist Trap, and you could technically have spawned Joseph Biger or Annette Mason, which means that you could potentially get 9 experience. I think that's a lot.
There's a
10, sorry, 10.
10, yeah.
There's another miss. Yeah. It's a lot of XP.
Yeah, that's a lot for this this part of the campaign. And then if you don't have a full group, then you don't get as much XP, which is strange.
Sad.
It's kind of like the first scenario though too, right? Because you had more locations out, or no?
That is no. Those ones, all of those go out no matter what. It's just how they're split up.
That's right. It's whether or not you've got more than one. Okay, yeah. Well, pretty exciting scenario, honestly, with all of this stuff going down.
Yeah, it's a really cool scenario. It's like has a lot of real tense moments, mostly because of the encounter deck, and also the climax is really cool.
Yeah, it's the final showdown with the Spectral Watcher, and it's like actually leads you into the story a lot more than before. You're like, what is this guy?
Right.
Well, shall we talk about the encounter deck then?
Let's do it. We have a ton of cards that are custom to this encounter deck. However, some of them are reprints. This is one of the few times we have reprints, although we had some in Dunnage. So first of all, we have the Whippoorwill, which is a reprint from Dunnage. If you recall, it's a 2/1/4 creature enemy with Aloof and Hunter, and everyone at its location gets -1 to all of their stats. That's really annoying.
So it's kind of fun in this scenario in particular because of the circle tests.
Correct. Since those are usually testing more than one test, this guy gets more and more impactful.
Yeah, I like that they brought them back for sure.
Yeah, and of course it's obviously thematically appropriate since Unvisited Isle has a thing with Whippoorwills and stuff like that. We have a new enemy, the Spectral Raven, 2/2. Creature in Spectral, it preys on the lowest intellect. It has all the keywords, alert, hunter, retaliate. And after it engages you, you must either resolve all of the haunted abilities on your location, or it gets +2/+2 until the end of the investigation phase. That's really annoying.
Yeah,
Although the first time is usually not so bad, but like if it re-engages with someone else, then it can happen again, and you're like, oh my god, stop!
that's true. That's true. Yeah, if you, I mean, you just got to get rid of this guy.
You really
You
do.
you do not want this hunting into you ever.
Yeah, since especially a lot of the haunted effects, like for example, this one Forsaken, what is this? Forsaken Woods can spawn whippoorwills here.
Hmm.
Some of them like cost actions, like the Standing Stones. You really don't want to have the haunted effect of here to go off. So
Right, and choosing the +2/+2 is until the end of the next investigation phase.
right,
If it's hunting into you during the enemy phase or something. Yeah.
yeah.
All
All right,
right.
we got two more reprints: Eager for Death and Psychopomp's Song. So the Eager for Death is a willpower test. You fail. If you fail, you take 2 horror, and it goes up in difficulty for each damage on you. And Psychopomp's Song is that whenever you take 1 more damage, you take 2 additional and discard it. And notably, it has Surge, but more importantly, Peril. You add it to someone's threat area, so you have to make a choice.
Yeah. Well, I won't say anything else about this because we have the same
Yeah,
cards.
the cycle is completed, so we have Death Approaches. It's the same thing as Psychopomp's Song, but about horror. And Marked for Death, which is the same thing as Eager for Death, which is an agility test, but it's about horror. But if you fail, you take 2 damage. So now that the cycles are complete, you have maximum damage output coming from the encounter deck. Um,
Yeah, this is like a spiral. It's a death spiral.
Indeed, yeah. I believe there's 2 of all of them. So
Hmm.
like, imagine having both the Psychopomps and Death Approaches happen, and then you take like 1 and 1, and you're like, I'm taking 3 and 3. Sorry.
Yeah, just think about the fact that these have surge.
Yeah.
Man, they're tough.
Yeah, they're tough. All
Oh,
right.
at least they're one batch of the horror or damage though, right? So you
Correct.
can use deny existence or delay the inevitable, right? That's the card.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, but
We have.
you don't get rid of the death approaches though until you actually take the horror or
Oh God, that is
the
true.
damage.
That
Yeah.
is true. All right.
Oh wait, yes you do.
We.
Sorry,
Oh no.
you do.
Yeah, because the trigger would happen first, and then you could respond to ignore the horror, not the actual taking of the horror. That's right.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, we have 1 copy of Watcher's Gaze, which goes into the encounter deck at the first agenda act, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, sorry, this is the Act 2 flip. That's right, something like that. Anyway,
Yeah, when it spawns.
uh, it is a willpower test for each investigator. Each investigator who fails must resolve either the haunted ability on their location or the haunted ability on the spectral watcher's location. Um, so that's a tough test, obviously, and depending on where you are, it can be okay, I guess. So like, you can lose 2 resources from this, or you could spawn a whippoorwill. So like, usually it's kind of okay, but if this, I mean, obviously this affects everyone in the party. So like, ideally someone kind of should pass it, or it's a good like ward target. But
Oh my
like,
goodness. Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny though. This scales with player count.
it does.
Hmm.
Yep. And then we have the Watcher's Grasp, which we have seen before.
Yep. I think it's pretty tough here. Again, I noted before the map is very, very cramped. Um, Getting this guy to move again is pretty tough.
Yes, and in this one particular case, if you have missing persons taken by the Watcher, this card can be an absolute nightmare because usually you don't have damage on the Watcher because you try to kill it in 1 turn. If it has a ton more health than normal, usually this might actually heal relevant damage from it, which is really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, everything else is old, but we should probably point out these two.
Ah, kill me!
The haunted abilities. Yep. So Realm of Torment. You just resolve whatever's here, and
And then
yeah,
you're stuck there, and you make it more difficult for everyone.
that's bad.
That's bad. Or you're
And
stuck at the whippoorwill here, and then you get a whippoorwill, so it makes you fail the test. And you're like, stop!
oh, and
Oh,
Shapes of the
God.
Mist is pretty awful here too.
Yeah.
I also think that Fate of All Fools is tough because of taking the direct damage means that you take additional direct damage.
Yeah, would you like to take 4 damage?
Yeah, and it has to be direct, right?
Jesus.
Because it's additional.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of bad.
that's crazy.
and then the rest of them are. Oh, I should mention Ancient Evils here. So the Doom thresholds on our two agendas are relatively. Nope, that's not one. High. So we've got
Yeah,
8
18 total.
and 10. But don't forget, you probably are going to start with 1 or 2 or maybe 3 on the agenda to begin with.
Yep.
And the reshuffle, I think, makes this a little tougher with our Ancient Evils. And you potentially, if you get so far into the scenario, we have uh, Mysteries of the Lodge, right? They're in here.
Yeah. There's 3 of those, and also that card.
Yeah. So I think that Ancient Evils is a bit tougher than it can usually be in isolation here.
Yeah, totally. Obviously with that encounter deck reshuffle, it's a thing, and I usually find that the cultist enemies don't really matter. Like usually by that time you're like, oh okay, we just drew them. We know we need to end the scenario now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They
but
do
you're
go to
right.
empty locations though. So if you're probably like at the Geist Trap and you're like you need to finish things this turn, and
Yeah,
sometimes them spawning keeps you from doing that.
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, we do have more VP with the Nether Mist. That's nice.
That is nice. Yeah,
That's about it. I think it's a with this chunk, it's really brutal. The Whippoorwills are kind of neat here too because of the circle tests, and then I just don't think there's much that's soft. Like obscuring fog probably is the softest thing as it usually is, but even so, it can show up somewhere where you don't really want it.
yeah. Everything's pretty tough.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that is the scenario. I do like the art on the backside of the axe. Pretty
Love when they
cool.
do full art
Hmm.
acts and agendas. Those are always really cool. Yeah,
It always feels pretty epic,
yeah,
which I think this scenario does
yeah,
feel that way. So,
yeah. And also, it's the name of the scenario. Either disillusion or union. Hey.
yeah, okay, it's true. It's in the wrong order though. This is like Disillusion is R1 and
Correct.
Union is R4.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll just pause for a second, then we'll be talking about this more formally with some of our readings. One thing we forgot: the tokens.
Yeah, so we did talk about the skulls, but let's talk about the other ones. So the cultist, aka you've been with the lodge for a while, it's a -3. If you have no damage, you take a damage. If you have no horror, you take a horror. Hey, that could sometimes be 3 damage or 3 horror.
Ugh. So this
Yeah,
is the yeah. If you're on the lodge's side, right?
correct.
Hmm. You can get rid of these at
Uh,
least midway through the scenario.
that is true. Yeah, that is true. We have the tablet -3. If you fail, a spectral enemy at your location attacks you, even if it is exhausted. So it's either going to be the Spectral Watcher itself, or it could be this Raven thing, or the Shadow Hound, Nether Mist.
Ooh.
It's usually kind of okay, and it's only if you fail.
Yeah, Shadowhound will make you do the haunted abilities though.
Oh, that is true. Careful with that. And we have the Elder Thing -3. If this is a skill test during a circle action and you fail, you then resolve each haunted ability on your location. That can be brutal sometimes. Although hopefully you don't fail those.
Yeah, it's okay. In this case, I mean, sure, yeah, if you have like the skull into the Elder thing, but I do feel like this isn't going to happen. That's not the bulk of your test, right?
Yeah, agreed.
So it's just like a flat -3 most of the time.
Yes, and fun fact with the hard side, none of them are different. They're all just -1 more.
Hmm, that's
Weird.
unusual.
Yeah, it's very unusual.
Hmm. The -3 on the skull, I think, is a big difference, but
Yeah,
otherwise,
that is true.
yeah, -3 for everything is pretty fine. I think at this point
Yeah.
in the campaign, you should be able to deal with that. Okay.
Yeah, and usually by scenario 6, you want to be at least 3 up anyway. Like,
Hmm.
obviously, in the other campaigns, you would have a -5 in the bag, which is another reason to be up 3. So this just makes it kind of more the standard.
Yep. Okay. Now for real, we're going to talk about our ratings. So replayability on this one is um, interesting to talk about because there's so many different paths. However, I don't think because most of those paths are pretty much the same that has much to do with it. I think like for story purposes, I think that's really cool, but notably Carl Sanford, sorry, Joseph Meyer and Annette Mason don't really go into play until like the real last part of the scenario.
Yeah, I would say that most of the replayability comes from either the very end when it shows up
Hmm.
and the other people show up, And like just the inherent variability of what locations you're getting, and specifically what circle tests you're getting. It's not necessarily replayable because in 4-player you're gonna get all the locations anyway.
Hmm.
And so there's basically zero replayability in that sense. Um, but in like 1 or 2-player, you could be like, oh, okay, we didn't see the one that was brain and book this time, or something like that. So there's honestly, I mean, this scenario is very straightforward, and it's just the fact that there's basically two versions of it. And actually, now that I say that, not even, because the encounter deck is the same, and the thematics of lighting or unlighting it is not actually mechanically a thing.
That's right. It's the same. You're doing the same test.
Correct. So really, mostly it's the same. Um, yeah,
So the second question maybe is a better one to talk about then. I find this one to still be pretty fun and maybe new things to explore about how you're going to deal with the challenges in this one on further playthroughs. I don't feel like you're. I mean, while it's still Arkham and things are going to be different every time you play, I don't think it's like super different. But I think there might be more things you can get to. I don't know about how you've done on this scenario before, but sometimes I do well, and sometimes like the doom accrues pretty quickly, and you're just kind of knocked out before you even get to the final circle test.
I think. I mean, for me, it's interesting. I feel like I usually don't have a tough time with this one, and I feel like a lot of that is either I'm getting lucky with my encounter card draws, or I really have never run into the fact that one of the missing persons was taken by specters or whatever, claimed by specters.
Yeah.
Because for me, that is the one thing that can completely derail this scenario. That like, if that did happen, then you're like kind of just screwed. You have to really prepare for it. So I usually don't have that happen, but if that does happen, then yeah,
Yeah, I just feel like it's a fun enough scenario to try to do better at if you fail.
yeah,
If you're doing well, then maybe you feel like, okay, I've experienced all that scenario has to to challenge me with, but um, I've definitely played it where I'm like, well, I know I could have done better, or you could have maybe if you hadn't have done poorly in the prologue, or whatever else maybe be a little easier. I think that the number of heretics matters quite a bit too.
that's true. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, with that in mind, I think I'm gonna give it a 3. I think without the kind of ending bits where things can be radically different, and without the different effects of what happened to the prologue investigators, this would definitely be lower. But
Yes.
as you said, like there's really not much different with the scenario, but it's still like good to go through each time. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you there. It seems like it's average.
yep.
Okay, fairness. Does a challenge create interesting and meaningful decisions for the players? So what are the challenges here? Challenges are mostly dealing with the encounter deck, all of the damage and horror piling up,
And
and,
the circle
and
tests.
the circle tests.
Yep. Um, I feel okay. So I think I'll save my things about the circle test for balance because
Yep.
I think that it's more aligned with that just because usually it's just the fact that it's dependent on player composition, I guess.
Well,
Um,
maybe. Like I do feel like so all the circle tests except for the last one are like between 9 and 11, right?
yeah,
And you're allowed to commit cards that are wild icons, of course, but also cards that have the test that you are stronger out of those two skills, and you can spend clues. So I do think under fairness here you have a way to deal with things that might be stacked against you.
I see that. Yeah, that makes sense. Um,
Like I
yeah,
don't think I've played this too much, and I've run into a location where I'm like, well, I'm totally hosed.
right. And it might be the fact that I don't think I've actually I no, that's not true. I played this once on True Solo.
Hmm.
Um, and like it wasn't like a nightmare. I'm trying to even remember. No, you know what? It was Jacqueline Fine, so she had no problems with this. Um, um but I was just like trying to imagine because there's so many horror stories of like people in True Solo trying to play this scenario and like literally being impossible. Maybe not literally, um, but again, maybe that's a balanced question. I think specifically talking about fairness, like I really focus on a lot of the damage and horror in this scenario because it is a lot.
It's a lot.
Um, it is a lot, and you can really be hosed by drawing some really bad counter cards. So like there is that, and while yes, there are ways to try and mitigate that, either having tech for the scenario, like trying to get rid of the death approaches or the cards that stick in play, right?
Hmm.
Um, then like yeah, like what are you even doing? You're just like trying to avoid damage and horror, right? You're trying to not die. Um, so it's really tough in those aspects, but ultimately this is a scenario where you are getting clues and making a test. So like it's not so bad, but
Yeah.
yeah, what do you think?
I think the worst part is maybe something that you brought up earlier, where there's not much you can do about the auto fails on the circle
Yeah,
tests.
that's true.
I mean, there's obviously there are cards, but um, the fact that you get put way behind from failing those means that there's not much you can catch up when the clues don't refresh.
Yeah, yeah. If there was a way for again either clues to refresh or having the difficulty of the test scale per investigator, I think it would be much more reasonable.
Hmm.
But yeah. So okay, with that in mind, I think I'm also gonna give it a 3. I think
Yeah,
it feels really like middle of the road to me.
that sounds fine. I'll give it. I kind of like at least some of the things that you can do. Like they at least threw a
Mhm.
bone to you and said there's multiple ways to pass the test. It's not just brute force it. So I'll give it a 3.5. I think that sounds fine. The pressure thing we didn't really talk about, but I think it's like it's okay. Like the pressure comes from the doom, but also notably the damage and horror
Yeah,
situation. Uh, I think it's fine to me because that is what the scenario is doing as a whole, right? Like there's not much to it. It is really just can you survive long enough to pass those tests, get the clues, and move on to the guy's trap. So I'm okay with that. Like if you fail, it's because you couldn't meet the challenge, and well, that's that. At least the penalty for failing this one is basically nothing.
that's true. Yeah,
All right, let's move on to balance then. And now maybe the question about like can you even tackle the challenges with anyone you bring? Can everyone do something here?
yeah. I think that it out of any of the scenarios in this campaign, this one definitely rewards a uh like a flexible play group. Notably about like having to commit those cards, having a well balanced team where you have like a mixture of good stats to be able to be like, oh, you're good at these 2 tests, so
Hmm.
go over and do this circle test. I'll do the other one, etc. Um, but again, I'm just gonna mention the true solo thing one last time
Sure.
because I really do think that in true solo this is very unbalanced, if that makes sense. Like I would never want to play a scenario in true solo um, without some specific tech. Like if I was in standalone, then I'm sure I could tech for the scenario. But um,
So in True
that
Solo,
is
you get 3 locations before the guy's trap that have circle tests. So it's pretty. That's pretty tough.
yeah, yeah, and also in true solo, right? So okay, let's do some math. So you have two, one, and then you have two there. So in order to advance to the third act, you have spent all the clues on the first 3 locations.
Yep.
You then have one more location, and then you have the Geist Trap. That's a total of 3 clues for the entire scenario.
Yeah, that's not enough.
That's not enough.
At least you have the Ace of Rods, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. um,
Yeah,
so I think that is an issue, but it's really a true solo only issue in my opinion.
which is not
So
unusual in this game, for that matter.
it is not, but I think this is the most egregious one,
Hmm.
just because of the scaling. So
Maybe the Dream Eaters one that people don't like the end also is pretty
uh,
bad for True Solo.
I'm trying to. Oh right, well, you know what? We'll get to that because I'm
Yeah.
trying to even remember what you're talking about. But I think I remember. Anyway, I think I'm gonna give it like a 3.5 because I think otherwise it's like a 4.5, and I'll just take 1 point off for it to being very hard and true solo.
Okay. I'm gonna just give it a 4 then. I think
Okay.
it's fine. I do like to note a few, ways that it's a lot easier. I think this is a scenario. If you bring along the people in this campaign, it rewards you a lot. I think maybe not
That's
Preston,
true.
except for the cheese I mentioned earlier. But Diana is really good here.
Diana is very good here. Yes.
Yeah, like I think the having all of those stats that add together make it pretty easy to pass most of those tests. And then I don't know, I mean, just all the cancels, right?
I mean, yeah. Turning off the encounter decks turns out to be a good idea.
All right, last thing, experience.
Yeah. So I really like the flavor of all of the locations. I think that there's not necessarily too much detail in like exactly what they're doing and what even a circle test is to begin with. But it is cool that you're like at this island and you need to either light or unlight the things, and then like this, climax at the end is a really, really cool
Hmm.
moment. It really tells a nice like sequence of events in this scenario as well. Like you're going through the woods and you find a missing person, you're like, oh my god, you're here, or like, oh my god, it's trying to kill me. um so I really like that kind of thing. And ultimately, like, the gameplay loop, as I said before, is basically just trying to get clues and then make those circle tests. And I do like the idea of the circle tests, and I wish they did more of that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So I think I like it.
I think they're supposed to be like the ritual, right? Like in the first scenario, the circle that you are, encountering in the woods is the witch's circle, right? You're kind
Yep.
of doing that. That's my idea of what the fiction is here. Um, I think this one's really good too. That's the circle tests themselves. I think are really fun and give you a new way to look at your cards. Again, more things from this campaign. They gave you a cycle of cards like Steadfast and Curiosity that have lots of icons on them from two different stats.
True.
They're really good here if you get the ones that are the right pair, or at least you use it on the last one, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's a cool thing to add to the game, and I wish that they did more of it.
Yeah. I,
I think
I am now
some.
remembering.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you remember the same thing, but some encounter cards from the Dream Eaters kind of do a similar thing. Um, and those are cool encounter cards too. So yeah,
Yeah,
more of them.
I'd like to see. I think some custom campaigns like add like the same stat together. Like
Yeah,
you.
I mean, actually, in Dark Matter,
Yeah.
this specific mechanic is used in that one, and it was cool there. So yeah, more of that.
All right. What did you rate it?
I haven't rated it. I will
Okay.
put it at a 4.5. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. I also am gonna rate it at a 4.5. The one we did last time, we gave a 5.
We did.
And I don't think it's quite that one, but I think it's pretty close. Like I really enjoy the theming of this one. It's there are Arkham scenarios out there where I'm like, I don't know what's going on. But this one I think is very closely aligned to I think the theme.
I agree.
Neat. Yeah, this is a good one. We've had a couple of really good scenarios in a row, and after this we're done with the campaign, right? This is it. We won the campaign with the lodge.
Totally.
No, all right. We have two more scenarios to talk about, and they're quite different from these in terms
Indeed.
of what's going on. So come back next week. We'll talk about them. Otherwise, we'll be talking about the return to in just a sec. Okay, here we are talking about the return to. Let's start with the tarot card that we might have drawn for our tarot reading.
Yeah, it's the Lovers 6. So the good side is that when the game begins, each investigator can search their deck for an ally asset and add it to their hand, shuffling their deck. Really cool ability.
It's really good.
It is. However, the bad side, when the game begins, each investigator searches their deck for an ally asset and removes it from the game, shuffling their deck. Um, so technically it's not so bad because you could get rid of one copy of it. It doesn't say both, like all copies.
Hmm.
So like it's not so bad, but it is really good upside to have this at the start of your hand. So like, yeah,
Yeah, I'd rather have it upright, but if you were forced to have it this way, I don't think it's so bad.
yeah.
Okay.
All
What are
right.
some differences between the old one and the new version of the Return to?
We have a fifth potential version of Act 3, and it only happens if the investigators sided with the lodge and Aaron joined the investigators. So you have to have sided with the lodge and then also done Aaron's little side quest in Wages of Sin.
Side of the Lodge. That's so weird.
Yes. There's also in the return to text, there is some like additional intro stuff. So like Aaron talks to you, and then there's a new resolution as well. I think it's just kind of some flavor, but oh, sorry, the new resolution is not flavor at all. Um, I need to remember what that is because it has to do with this act. Okay, so if blah blah blah, this is the thing, this is the thing, and then this is the version. Oh, that's not the right one. I don't know why I did that wrong. Is it this one? Do no. Oh no.
Version 5?
Where is it? There it is. Okay, version 5. So it's, of course, the same text. And on the back here, so we move everyone to the thing, and then you still spawn in at Mason at the guy's trap, and you put 2 per damage on her. Um,
That's
so
nice.
that is nice. Meaning that normally on this side, you don't even get a net. Usually you get the lodge members, right?
Hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is if you
No,
side with the lodge.
Yeah, we're siding with
So
the lodge. Yeah.
yeah, so in this particular case, you normally a net mason would spawn, but she spawns with 2 per damage on her, so that is nice, correct. And then we get the binding ritual, which does lead to disillusion once again. Importantly, however, if you recall from the other one, so broken rice, that one goes to union, which is R4. In this particular version, in the return to, resolution 4 is now a new resolution. Normally, she gets the power and you go straight to R8. In this one, you now have the choice. You can step forward and accept Kezia's offering, skip to R9. You can only choose this option if an investigator has the black book in their deck and Aaron joined the investigators. And for R9, you can win the game. Again.
Yay!
Notably, the Coven can win the game.
Right. So it's a nice little balance to the early win for the lodge.
Correct. And in order to get the black book, obviously you need to have successfully not actually success well, you need to have completed the
Act 1?
I think so, of the rat scenario, secret name. That's
Yeah.
it. Actually can't yeah, do you get the black book even if you don't finish this? I'm trying to remember.
I think so, but I'm not sure.
That makes sense. But notably, you have to have Aaron join you, so you have to do the entire secret side quest.
Yeah, it's kind of tough.
That's the hard part.
All right.
All right, that is the real main difference. Obviously, they add the additional text for the Watcher's Grass that we saw in the Wages of Sin? Yeah, Return to. Other than that,
and the second scenario too, I think, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. We have some return to encounter cards and one new encounter card in this set. It's Brazier Enchantment, Cursed in a Hex, Revelation put into play next to the agenda deck. Increase the difficulty of each skill test during circle actions on locations by 2. And then it has a circle action on it to test your lowest skill plus your next lowest skill 6. And if you succeed, you discard it. If you fail, you resolve each haunted ability on your location. This card just keeps on going, huh? So not only is it a circle test, meaning that you could spend clues to get rid of it, not getting rid of it, but help with it. But you're also testing your 2 lowest skill 6, which is usually like a sum of 3 or 4 maybe. So that's pretty bad. And then it makes the other ones worse. So like you have to really get rid of this first.
Yeah.
And if you fail, you resolve each haunted. It sucks.
This is bad. I mean, the thing about spending clues is, well, the clues are gone. You can't use them for other circle tests.
Yeah.
So I do like that it rewards testing your lowest skill. So it rewards, someone like Jenny who's got, 3s already.
That's true.
So she's already got 6.
Yeah. And also like, the core set investigators, except for Wendy, have like a 2 and then a 3. So like base 5 is usually not so bad. So yeah.
Do they have that? I think they have. But
I guess they have the 2 and a 2.
Daisy
yeah,
is 2 and 2. Yeah.
Yeah, and so does Roll. Wait. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Roland does 2 and 3, right? He's got 2 agility and 3.
He does have 2 and 3.
Intellect and willpower. So they're kind of okay. It rewards the flatter stat line investigators, but it's still not a given that you're going to pass the test. So,
no, and really like having the fail resolve each haunted ability is just like, come on, why?
Yeah. How many are these? There's 2 of them.
There's 2 of them. Ugh. They should have like victory 0 on them or something.
Yeah, again, I like that they increase the difficulty of the scenario a little bit. Maybe they could have made it 5 instead of 6, or maybe they could have not had the haunted thing here, but here it is.
Here it is. And then we have a bunch of returning ones. So we have the unavoidable demise and fate of all fools. So notably, unavoidable demise does combo with the other encounter cards because it deals damage.
Yeah.
And in theory, you could take 4, 5. So you could take 6 damage off of this.
In theory.
In theory, that seems like a nightmare. So that's tough.
I do think that the impending evils, which I was pretty tough on last scenario, is okay here. I think that
Yes.
ancient evils is maybe a bit much in my opinion on this one, and this is a little better because it also makes you take damage in horror, which can trigger the other effects. So you kind of think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, there is an actual choice there, I think.
Yeah. The other ones I think are fine.
Yeah, pretty much okay. Unstable energies can get really annoying because it can trigger that one location about moving actions taking. Actually, I don't even know if that's true. Anyway, this card is generally annoying anyway. So
right. I just don't think it's any worse here than the other scenarios that also have haunted effects.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think this really moves the needle for me in terms of the enjoyability or balance of the scenario. I think it's still good. It's just a little bit more difficult, which I think is fine.
I think the main thing it adds is the true coven path with Aaron and actually winning through that way. I think that is a really good part that
I'm glad
should have been in the beginning to begin with. So.
Agreed. They definitely should have had that because it is a little bit of an odd thing when you have the early lodge victory. This makes it feel more normal, I think.
Yeah, and it's not even like it's that easy to do. Also, you have to fully go for Aaron, which is like really, really hard. So again, it's another nice achievement.
All right, that is it for Union and Disillusion. So we will talk to you about what's it called? In the Clutches of Chaos?
In the Clutches of Chaos, yeah.
That's it. All right, next time. See you then.
See you then.